All right, welcome to the podcast. So excited about today's guests. We have on the creators of On Call, which is right now a TV show on Prime, Amazon Prime, and Freevee, Tim Walsh and Elliot Wolf. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Excited to be
Appreciate
here.
you having us.
Thank you for having us.
So I love that this is a police procedural because I'm calling this my wife's next favorite show. She is super into these types of shows. So I want to get kind of the origin story of On Call, what brought the idea together, the concept, how you got it rolling, how we got it landed on Amazon Prime. You guys can give me that story.
How much time do we have?
Yeah.
It's a 5-year process there, my friend, that starts with Elliot. So I'm handing the microphone to Elliot.
Yeah, it's been a long journey to your television screen, but a fun one. The show originated actually as a short form series, thinking about 10-minute formats and the Quibi era. And
Really? Okay.
if you remember Quibi, it
Yeah,
had
yeah.
the two-screen experience where if you held your
Mm-hmm.
phone horizontally, you had your traditional aspect ratio, and if you held your phone vertically, it would
Mm-hmm.
actually switch to a vertical shot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the shows on Quibi were using the same shot in different aspect ratios, but the
Mm-hmm.
technology allowed you to actually switch between shots. So the original idea was doing one-off calls where if you held your phone vertically, you were always in body camera. And
That's a neat idea.
in retrospect, now having shot a lot of body camera, that would have been very difficult. So maybe a blessing in disguise, but also with the world at large and the direction that Quibi was going, we took it to our friends at Freebie at the time, and they were really interested in the concept, but said, could you come back with a pitch for this a traditional TV show, not as a 10-minute format? And then went back to them with the idea of doing it as a half hour. You look at 1950s, 1960 primetime schedule, it's all half-hour procedurals. There's none in the marketplace
You're talking
today.
like Dragnet, stuff like that.
Dragnet, Adam 12.
Okay.
And, I also think in today's world, tension has never been more valuable. People's attention. And knowing that the half-hour procedural format is proven felt like a really fun and ripe opportunity to explore what the 2020, at that point, I don't quote me on the year, 2022 version, now 2025 version of a half-hour procedural could be. And I think that was the most fun part of the early days for Tim and I, was sitting down and saying, what's our version of this? And what's the balance between being a true procedural, serialization, and all of those elements that go into the foundational thinking around the show?
So, Tim, you came on as showrunner. Walk me through when you got this concept and you kind of put it together with Elliot, how you started seeing the show.
Yeah, so had a really good meeting with Elliot. Elliot and I had met previously while I was a writer on Chicago PD, so he was familiar with me,
Okay.
and he had already set this up and brought me in, and we hit it off. We had a really great conversation, and he left me with a question that really rung a bell inside me, and that was like, who would want to be a cop in, at that point in time, I think it was 2022, really one of the, more turbulent times to be a police officer. And to me, it was just a fascinating character study. Who does that? Who gets up, and puts the uniform on and goes out and still serves their community, even though half that community doesn't want them there? That
Wow.
to me was incredibly fascinating. And the entry point, who does that? And that person being a training officer has to then impart, their wisdom to the next generation coming in. And is that going to be positive wisdom? Is that going to be negative? Because all of the baggage that, Harmon is a 12-year veteran, if you've seen the show. I don't know, just getting back to your question, that's how I was brought in. That's what I really lit up to, was the idea of a character, specifically Harmon, the veteran, who, had probably seen the worst of times being a police officer, and she had to somehow try and figure out how to bring the next generation into this job. And for me, it was just fascinating to get into those characters, and kind of went from there.
So really kind of leaning in on the character study aspect of it. So
Yeah.
with that, having come from Chicago PD, was there any stories in Chicago PD that you wanted to tell but you couldn't and found a way to do that here?
Well, I wanted to use cuss words in Chicago PD, and we couldn't do that. So we can do that now. No, quite honestly, no, I had such an incredible time on Chicago PD. I really learned how to write on that show, but there wasn't anything I was hanging on to. It was more like, and Elliot will attest to this, it was more like, I don't want to do anything I did on Chicago PD. I want to try, like, our first and foremost, our rule was there are no rules with this. We have no structure. We are not a typical procedural. We don't start with a crime and solve it by the end of the episode. And that was very liberating, very freeing. We did a ton of research, multiple ride-alongs. Everybody did, the whole staff. If you want to write on the show, you had to go do that. And you get out there, and each one of these calls is almost like a short story in and of itself. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And sometimes it doesn't end successfully. Obviously, a lot of them don't end successfully, but they're like these little mini short stories and a tapestry of America, if you will. And again, that was fascinating. But no, nothing I took from PD other than my experiences of learning how to do that very quickly and developing ideas and episodes and being able to do that, because network TV, once that train leaves the station, it's a runaway train. And
Okay.
you've got to have the skill set to be able to come in, pitch, write, rewrite very quickly. Those really are the things I brought onto On Call. Creatively, nothing carried over from PD, I don't think.
Elliot, I got a kind of two-parter for you here. So, creating a procedural, obviously you have that I don't want to call it a bottle episode, but you have the arc within the episode. So you can have hybrid procedurals where they do the macro arc over this season and then multiple seasons arcs. Were you guys looking at that for On Call?
So if you've seen the season, we always saw that in our A story, if you will, in two chapters.
Hmm.
So episode 4 has a resolve, and then the back half of the season deals with the consequences of that resolve.
Yeah.
I always really see the real undercurrent of this series being the relationship between our two protagonists. The dynamic and the time spent in the car between calls is the heart of the series. It's to me, soul of it. And that can run in perpetuity, right? Maybe down the road, we need to get creative with how we keep these two together. But our A stories will come and go. And to Tim's point, there is no rules in the writer's room. So that might be a 2-episode arc, 4-episode arc, or 8-episode arc. But the serialization is in the relationship, which will be, I think, the heartbeat of the show in perpetuity for as long as we have the pleasure of writing it.
Have you, in your mind's eye, kind of figured out where you see this going in 2, 3 seasons, or when that was in the pitch when you were pitching it?
The pitch itself was much more about the characters, dynamic, setting, less so the A story for
Gotcha.
even the first
Okay.
season, let alone future seasons.
Okay.
But we have ideas. First and foremost, Amazon needs to want us to write more, and fingers crossed that happens. And I think the public's had a great response to the series. So we'll see if we have the pleasure of writing more stories for these characters. But we certainly fell in love with them.
Did you guys find that once this thing got rolling, it started to snowball, or did you run into any hiccups? I mean, you said it was a 5-year process. I mean, some places they have budget issues, they can't get the money. Other places are have a hard time attracting talent. You've got a great cast here, so it looks like you're able to get talent well. Was there any major hiccups over this 5-year creative process?
Tim,
Well,
you want to start?
yeah,
I'm just
for
throwing
me,
a hand grenade in and see what happens here.
no, hey, hand grenades are good. For me, the most bumps that we faced, in my opinion, was just during the development of it. I
Yeah.
mean, we're trying to do it. We're trying to do a cop show in this current state
Yeah,
where we're
sure.
at,
Good
and
point.
wasn't all, welcomed with open arms all the time, and a lot of the notes were counterproductive and very short-sighted, quite honestly. But we did our best, and you have to believe in the vision that fall on your own sword, if you will. You have to really believe in it and have conviction and keep politics out of it, which is what we did. We tried very, very hard to keep politics. This is not one side or the other side. Our room, I'm very proud. Our room was made up of left and right and people who give a fuck about politics. So just not to get off course, to me, the development of it was the most difficult part of it. Just getting what we wanted to say on the page over the net was always a challenge.
Yeah, I would say just double clicking on the notes piece of it. It's not that any one person gave us, counterproductive notes. It's more so the amount of cooks in the kitchen, right? We're dealing
Yeah,
with
sure.
Wolf, we're dealing with Universal, we're dealing with Amazon, and given the subject matter, everyone has a point of view. So it's just a matter of balancing all those different perspectives and translating it into one story on the page, which is the job, right? So you're juggling a lot of different perspectives and what is innately, I don't want to say controversial, really discussed subject right now, and has been for the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think
To triple click on that. Yeah, again, I don't think, if we're covering our asses here, I don't think there were any executives that were setting out to obviously everyone's just trying to do their job and to do it to the best they possibly can in a very tough time in this
yeah.
business for several reasons. So it was a lot to get through for sure. And what you see on screen wasn't easy to get there for sure.
I think everybody's has notes, and usually the intentions are the best, of course. And then what I like with as I'm writing and I'm getting notes from multiple producers and my director, and then even sometimes cast, I like that challenge of like, how do I meet this and not destroy the story? So sometimes, like, quote, from my perspective, the worst notes are the best notes because it really challenges me to be creative in a way that no one would expect. So yeah, it's definitely not an easy process, but it is what it is in order to make it happen.
Yeah, and also I'll add to that. You should be open to taking notes from anybody. I'll take notes from anyone. Is if it elevates the material, I don't care where the notes come from. But yeah, when there's a dozen voices, it can be difficult. But
Yeah,
I'm in
for
a
sure.
total agreement with you, man. Like you have to be, if you want to do this job, you have to be open and accepting to at least considering the notes, good or bad.
One of the best notes I ever got was when I was in a grocery store and I was stuck in line and I pitched the lady the show I was writing behind me and just
Did she
asked her
buy
for
it?
notes. Well, I wish she bought it. Come on, man, that'd be amazing. But she gave me some great notes, and I was like, "This is what I needed from a 75-year-old lady who's stuck in line with
That's
me." So
exactly
it's
right. That's who you should be. Yeah,
fantastic.
that's who you should be getting notes from, the public, the people who are going to watch the show. That's who you should be listening to.
So, all right, guys, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have about on call?
I mean, we can talk about it all day. Happy to go in whichever direction you want to go. This is obviously something we've been living and breathing for quite a while.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
I would, the casting, Troyan coming off of Pretty Little Liars, she deserves all the praise. Same with Brandon. Brandon's coming off network TV as well. You know,
so. You're talking about
the
Troyan,
Troyan
and
Belisario and Brandon
yeah,
Laquente, yeah, our two leads. I mean, they're the face of the franchise. They carry the franchise. You couldn't ask for two better leads. And then to surround them with like Lori Laughlin and
get
Eric
Eric LaSalle in
LaSalle.
there. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would just note the casting, as you did at the top of the show, was pretty great and worked in our favor.
I mean, did you guys get everybody you approached, or did it kind of cycle about and you got just various interest from people and went on a big casting spree, or what?
Kind
Traditional
of a
cast.
typical,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
typical casting process.
Okay.
I will say when we found Troy and Brandon, it was lightning in a bottle. We knew right then we had them.
They had
That's
that
how good they were.
chemistry.
It's a testament to them how prepared they were coming
That's
in.
awesome. All right. So, do you guys have any advice for writers out there that are working on TV shows right now, trying to get stuff made?
Tim, you start.
Writers working on TV shows. So you're talking about people who are already staffed?
No, I'm talking about spec writers, guys out there, writers
Yeah.
out there that are working on stuff on spec, trying to get it out there.
Um, the cliched version is, obviously never get comfortable with no, you know, never give up. Those are the cliched low hanging fruit. I always tell people you have to, you have to treat your craft like an athlete treats their craft.
I love
You have
that.
to put time into it. You have to, just like I always say, Michael Jordan would get up every morning and shoot free throws. You got to get up. You got to do what you do, man. You read, you talk to people, you study film, you study scripts of writers that you respect and their writing, and continuously, the most important tool you have to rise above all of the bullshit out there is your voice. Nobody can match that shit. And so the more you work on your voice, the more I think you'll be undeniable.
I love this non-cliche answer is absolutely incredible, Tim. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you for that. Yeah, from my perspective, and for me who was in the industry like 10, 15 years working as a script doctor, I heard no most of that until
Yeah, all of us
randomly I
have.
heard yes one time, and then everything changed. So yeah, definitely stick with it. Elliot, you're not on the spot.
It's sort of similar, and I think you're going to be told no time in, time out, sort of the 10,000 hours idea that Tim was getting at, but also really
Hmm.
believing in your voice. I think that you can always refine action, you can learn action. It's much harder to teach dialogue, and your voice, when refined, is unique. Every
I love
person's
that.
voice on the page is unique. So believe in it. And I think so many people have doubt both in presentation and follow up after getting feedback. So just stick to your guns, and you are writing for a reason. Remember that reason through all the no's, because everyone gets them a lot. We
Yeah.
get a lot.
We still get them.
Yes.
So sometimes you eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You
Elliot,
do. This is
I
true.
have to tell you what I love what you just said, because you hear so many people say, "Oh, it's your voice, know your voice." But what you've said, which I haven't heard anybody put yet, and I've done 256 episodes of this, I haven't seen anybody say your voice when refined. And that is brilliant, because you're not just giving your voice, you're giving the best version of your voice with that script and or that pitch or that query. And I think really looking at that and be like, okay, I have my voice, but have I really sat down and made this thing the best possible? That's such a great note. Thank you so much.
I really believe that the skill of writing is rewriting. The hardest part about writing is the blank page. 100%. The skill of writing is rewriting and being able to recognize where to refine too.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I put 12 drafts in before I start going, okay, this kind of looks like a script. All right, the show is on call. It is on Amazon Prime and Freevee.